What's up, guys? Cole here, and welcome back to the training. This training is called the call introduction. Okay, so how to start your calls in a way that sets the rest of the call up for a win. There's a phrase I really like that goes, "How you start the call is how you end the call." All right, and I'm not going to say that introduction is the most important phase of the call. I don't think that's true. But at the same time, if you have a terrible introduction, you're not going to close. Okay. And the intro is something that's very, very easy to nail and pin down. That once you get it, it's going to help you transition into your information gathering phase perfectly almost every time. That's very, very smooth, and you're going to have good momentum to start with. So let's get into it. First, I just want to show you where we're at. So in this diagram, this PDF, here's the introduction phase of the call. In that, there's two parts. Okay. There's rapport and frame the call. First, we have rapport. Then we frame the call, okay? So in this training, what we're going to cover is my pre-call routine. A lot of different people have pre-call routines out there. I'm just going to show you what's worked for me. We're also going to cover rapport myths and best practices. I feel like there's a lot of stuff taught out there with rapport that's just over the top and just a little bit too much. So we're going to talk about how to keep it simple and what works best here. As also the opposing agendas of you and the prospect. All right, basically your prospect and you are on the call for different reasons. So we're going to talk about that, some implications of that, and then also what to do, as well as taking leadership of the call from the start. So how we do that, there's different ways. And then both on rapport and frame, I'm going to give you specific scripting as well. So let's go over the pre-call routine. Basically, the pre-call routine is a 2 to 3 minute routine we do before every call. All right, so I think of this as repriming. In the morning, in Keys to High Performance, which is in week 1, we talk about in the morning doing your priming, okay, your morning routine, and getting basically your physiology, your language, and your focus ramped up to where you're in peak state. All right. So the 2 to 3 minutes before each call is going to be your repriming. The reason we do this is it allows us to reset after each call. All right. Because we were talking about this on the training today, on the group call today. It's like, sometimes you go for a deposit, the prospect's just giving you a bunch of BS, they're just not committed. And at the end of the day, you end up getting frustrated. And like I've been there, I throw my fist through the wall about calls before. So your biggest risk when stuff like that happens, which is in a lot of ways inevitable, is letting one bad call turn into 2 bad calls. Okay? So we want to reset after each call so we keep each call in its own universe. Okay, on its own island. So the way we do that is I always like to think of priming. I always like to think of it using the triad from Tony Robbins. Okay, so basically there's 3 parts. There's their physiology, your language, and your focus. So we're going to ramp each of those up. So here's how I do it. Okay, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. As long as you hit these 3, you're good. And I'd also recommend you do it in a short time frame because like I used to have a 15-minute pre-call routine. And it didn't work because I never did it. So just keep it short so you actually do it. And like if you get off a call, you only got 2 minutes before the next call, you can do this. All right. So the first thing I'll do is 6 deep breaths. And basically I'll do that by breathing all the way out, like all the way out till there was no air at all in my body. And then all the way back in. When I mean all the way back in, I mean your diaphragm, your chest, and like your nasal cavity. Okay, so there's 3 parts. All the way in. And you do that 6 times. When you do that 6 times, that'll change your physiology. Okay? That's the quickest way to do it. If you can, and I would go outside and do it too if you have like a patio. If you have time, you can also take a quick walk outside and do some breath work. Like sometimes I'll just walk around Nashville downtown and do like Kundalini breath of fire. And people probably look at me weird, but I don't care. And then if you have even more time, you could do something like, 10, 15 minutes of Wim Hof. That is some of the best pre-call stuff and morning priming stuff I've ever found. And if you haven't been able to tell already, I'm a big fan of breath work. I do Wim Hof and holotropic breathing almost every day, and also Kundalini breath of fire a lot when I'm walking. So I really like it. It's just one of the quickest ways you can change your physiology and do it very effectively. Another thing is, and this is going to be woo-woo a little bit for you guys, but become aware of how your body feels and also your current state of self-talk. All right, and then you want to surrender to that. So what I mean here is that, like, let's say you have call number 1's bad, call number 2's bad, and you got 6 calls that day, so you got 4 people coming up and you have like a little half hour to reprime yourself. You want to really become aware of your thoughts. All right, because oftentimes when we get frustrated, we get pissed off, right? We have 2 people in a row that don't have money. We start thinking to ourselves, man, none of these effers have money. This is BS, F this. And we start to create negative self-fulfilling prophecies with our self-talk. So what we want to do is we don't want to resist that and fight it. We just want to become aware of it, because we're not our thoughts, okay? Our thoughts are just these fragments of consciousness. So we want to become aware of that, and then just by becoming aware of it, you disassociate yourself from it. So we become aware of it, and then once we're aware of it, we're able to surrender to it. Okay, don't resist it or fight it. You just let it surface and let it dissolve. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions about this. But I know it's a little bit woo-woo. It's really just meditation, right? But it's a constant practice you're doing all the time. You do the same things with your feelings. So you do it with your thoughts, and then every thought is associated with a feeling. So for me, I'm getting off calls and I get mad sometimes. What feeling is coming up? Anger for me, because I'm very high D. Okay, so I gotta be aware of that anger and then sit in it and surrender to it. Just let myself not resist it, but let it overcome me a little bit. And it might be intense for a minute or two, but then it's going to dissolve. Okay, we want to get in the practice of doing this all the time. All right. The other thing is find something to be grateful for or appreciate. All right. So what we appreciate appreciates, and this covers the focus part. All right. Because if we're focusing on all the people who didn't close and gave us the BS objections and so on and so forth, what type of state is that going to put us in? A negative state. If we focus on something we're grateful for, we're looking forward to, we're excited about, or we appreciate, we're going to curate a state that has all the emotions that we want to transfer onto the prospect and bring onto the call. Okay? It's going to help ground us, make us more present, all of that stuff. So, and then lastly, what I'm going to do is set intentions. So I set always 3 intentions before every single call. I just made this up, but it's something that I always, it always stuck with me, and I feel like it's just, they're good 3 cues that you can have for yourself. So the first one is ruthless detachment from the outcome. Okay, we're ruthlessly detached from the sale. The second one is our commitment to getting to the truth of the transformation they want. What's keeping them from getting that on their own? And if their actions are going to align with their words, if their actions are going to align with the change they really say they want to make, if they're truly committed to making that change. We want to get clear on the transformation, what's stopping them from getting to that goal, what they want, and the truth of if they're committed to doing what they say, right? This is what we attach our focus on. We detach from the sale and we attach to the truth. Let me know if you have questions on that, guys. Lastly, we have fun. And this is like, this is actually I really feel like this is a profound piece of advice, because you're not just having fun like, oh yeah, man, get out there and have fun. Finding a way to enjoy the process is the fastest way to get into flow, okay? And your highest state of performance is going to be when you're in total flow with the prospect, okay? It's going to be a state where you're going to always say the perfect thing. You'll look back on the call and you'll be like, I don't even know how I said that, but that was awesome, right? And you'll have to go back and transcribe it just because you said something in the moment that was amazing. And when you're in total flow with the prospect, what's going to happen, especially in the prospect eyes, is that I guarantee, throughout all the salespeople they've ever talked to in their entire life, they've probably never had somebody who was just so focused on them and so in the moment and grounded in the moment with them. And it's going to make you stand out like crazy. And it's going to be one of those things to where, that prospect is going to reach out the next day or in a couple days or a week, a couple weeks, months, whenever, and let you know how transformative that conversation was they had with you. Because very few people ever have somebody who's just totally present when they're speaking with them. And you have the opportunity to be that somebody for somebody else. So I used to get that all the time, people reaching out to me about how amazing and powerful the conversation was, is because I was able to just make the call a meditation to where my focus is just solely on them. So I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but it's big, guys. And just the best way to do it is focus on them and enjoy the process. Make it like an art. And it should feel challenging and fun and enjoyable, but it shouldn't feel stressful and anxiety producing. Okay, because flow is the balance between like below flow state is things just being too boring. Okay, above it is things being too stressful and hard and anxiety producing. So there's kind of a balance there, and that's where you want to strike this. So let's talk about rapport myths and best practices. Now, what is rapport? Rapport is basically the part of the call from when the prospect answers until we set the agenda, okay, until we frame the call. Our outcomes during rapport, like what we want to achieve here, is one, being able to demonstrate that we're a normal human being, okay? And what I mean by this is nothing crazy, like, but you know, how often do you get called by a telemarketer who just sounds like, you know, they might as well just be a robot, okay? We want to just make sure we're not that. And that's very, very easy. You know, the easiest thing to do is just don't try to be anything you're not, just be yourself. Okay. We also want to subtly make sure the prospect is in a good time and place, right? We want to take care of the logistics. I'll show you how we do this in a little bit. Then we also want to get in rhythm with the prospect and smoothly transition into setting the agenda. So we want to kind of fall into the prospect's cadence a little bit or have them fall into ours and really kind of get in a good flow. All right. I'll talk more about this in a second. What rapport is not, it's not a time to talk about your favorite baseball team. All right, or the Baltimore Ravens or the Cleveland Browns, God forbid. It's not a time to talk about any of that. All right, it's not a time to talk about your life story, your prospect's life story, and the journeys and the travels and whatever. I mean, no, just save it for later, guys. It's also not a time to talk about oh, like what type of neighborhood do you live in? How nice is it? I've never been out to Chicago before. What do you like about it? If I go out there, what do you think I should see? I know that's common advice, guys. Don't do it. I've found that some prospects might eat it up and it might create kind of good rapport, but more often than not, you're going to lose sales because of that, because some people they don't want to. They want to talk about their business. They want to talk about their weight. They want help. Okay, they don't want to bullshit and talk about their neighborhood and whatever else when they know it's not authentic to begin with. Now, on the contrary, rapport should be very brief and short. Okay, so here's the thing and this is why I don't like the inauthentic rapport, because imagine you had a broken arm, you went into the doctor, and the doctor's diagnosing you, and he starts asking, before he even starts diagnosing you, he's asking you like about your neighborhood and like the Browns and the Cleveland Indians, all these sports, and you're just like, dude, I got a broken arm. I mean, that's how these people are. They're coming to you with a broken business, a broken life. I mean, it's okay to have a little bit of small talk, and I'll show you how we do that, but just don't overdo it with this rapport stuff, okay? Don't be inauthentic with it. Now, also, I mentioned earlier, so how do we get in rhythm with the prospect? So we do this, because this is our other outcome for rapport, right? We do this through mirroring and matching. Now, do not overcomplicate this. Basically, there's visual, audio, and kinesthetic. Visual is like me. Like I'm like high D, talk really fast. I like visualize things, and I'm using language like, look at this. Okay, that's visual. Kinesthetic is very slow, and to really answer your question, they have to process all of the possibilities. Okay, they have to really check in with their gut and how they're feeling. That's kinesthetic. So there's a big difference between audio or between visual and kinesthetic. Now, audio is in between it. So if you can't tell, it's audio. Visual is going to use words like, it looks like this. What I'm seeing is this. What I visualize is this. They might call themselves a visionary. I had a lady who was so visual, and I really think of myself as a visionary. I'll never forget that. Audio will use words like, it sounds like. Okay, yeah, I mean, what I'm really hearing is this. Kinesthetic will use words like, it feels to me that, whatever. My intuition is really telling me this. Like my soul is speaking to me in this way. They might say stuff like that, okay? All you got to know, guys, yes, there's certain like language, like you can shape your language to align better with these modalities, but I have found that not to really drive the needle as much. I think the biggest thing that you can get from this is just knowing your pacing. All right. So like being able to tell, okay, this person's pretty like high D visual. Okay. So increase your pacing, right? Maybe your visual and this person's audio decrease it a little bit. Or if they're kinesthetic, definitely decrease it if you're not kinesthetic naturally yourself. The only caveat to this, because mirroring and matching is good, except with the caveat that if you get an Eeyore on the call who's apathetic, all right, or they're experiencing major guilt and shame, we don't want to mirror that, okay? The reason why is apathy, guilt, and shame are very low levels of consciousness. Anything that's a low level of consciousness, we do not want to mirror, all right? So in that case, really, I mean, if you're getting an apathetic, like a really bad apathetic prospect on the call, we want to send them into anger, all right? A lot of times that's going to be reframes, pattern interrupts, things that we would probably do in the objection handling part of the call, so we can cover that in week 4. So you need to break them out of that because this is not an excitatory state. It's a state where they're shut off to all possibilities. Same with guilt and shame, right? So we actually have to shift their state if we're going to shift their ability to make a decision and change their life. So let's get into specific scripting for rapport. I'm going to quit this because it's bugging me like crazy. Let me pause this video. All right, cool. So in terms of specific scripting, we're going to go through rapport really fast. Now, there's kind of a caveat here that I'll put down here, actually. There's a little caveat here that we change depending on how they answer. But more often than not, especially if your marketing is good, people are going to be excited or at least neutral to talk to you when they answer the phone. So you're going to start the call and say, hey, is this John? Awesome. Hey, it's Cole. How's it going? Awesome, man. Actually just got done working out and did a little meditation and breath work. So how's your week been so far? Cool. And you checked out the post that I wrote on Facebook, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, what stuck out to you about it? Awesome, man. Well, I know we got a limited amount of time here, so are you ready to jump in? You got like a clean sheet of paper or something to take notes with? Okay, so let's go through this one by one. Obviously, hey is this first name. Hey, this is, and in this example, obviously, somebody who's reaching out to me, they know who I am because they're reaching out to work with me, right? But if you're from XYZ company, you might want to say something like that. Okay, how's it going? Simple. Awesome. I actually was just X. So this is not required. You could go, awesome, and the week's been good so far. You could transition right into that. It's fine. But I like to say this because it brings them into my world a little bit. Awesome, man. I actually just cooked dinner for a couple of friends and had a little dinner party. Something just simple. It just humanizes you a little bit and brings them into your world. And it gives them something like tangible they can cling on to and possibly ask you a question, which can take you into like a little minute tops back and forth with rapport, where you might have a little chuckle about something, and then there's a lull, and then you would go into this. That's the best way to do rapport. But then if I say, hey, I was actually just working out and did a little bit of meditation. Now I'm speaking with you, and I kind of might pause for like a second or two. And if they don't say anything there, I'm just going to, awesome. So your week's been good so far? And they're like, yeah. And then this is optional here, but like you can also, so you reached out based on that ad on Facebook. Yeah. What stuck out to you? All right. So it kind of is going to start to create some dialogue about why they're on the call, which is fine, but you don't have to do this. Okay. I mean, if you don't want to, you can go right for this, which is the most important phrase of all of this. So you ready to jump in? I'm asking this question rhetorically, so I'm not letting them answer. So I ask this and then I ask another question. Obviously, that's just my dialect, guys. So just do the principles right here. You don't have to copy this verbatim. But this is what I would say verbatim, which is got a clean sheet of paper / something to take notes with, okay? We do this to pin down the logistics. All right, because if they're driving, they're not going to have a clean sheet of paper or something to take notes with. If a lot of times, even if they're like, oh, in 15 minutes, I got to take my son to a basketball game, this will prompt them to say that because it kind of reminds them like, yeah, this is like a 45-minute call. Or hour-long call, whatever you scheduled it as, and we're gonna like take some notes. It's a serious call about my business or my life. Okay, so this will help you pin down logistics big time. All right. Now, so we always ask this, and we're gonna have them take notes later on the call, so it just makes sense. Real quick here, if they answer very skeptical, all right. So, hey, is this John? Yeah, this is John. Something like that, or yeah, awesome, man. Like, how's it going? And then I'd probably after that, I'd say, okay, well, I'm calling about the appointment you scheduled with me at 4 p.m. Central Time. Is it still a good time to connect? Are you sure? And if he says yes, yes, great. Okay, well, and then I would go into this, right? So don't even like, I know this is like very limited amount of small talk here, but don't go into any of this if you get like a very skeptical, very dismissive type of response, almost like they forgot about the call. Okay. And I wouldn't even say, how's it going? I'd probably go right into saying, okay, man, well, is it still a good time to connect? Like, you want to lean out a little bit because you want them to re-engage. Okay. Like, if you lean out, think of it in the visual sense. If you lean out, they're going to it creates a space. So they have to step in. Okay. So it's a very small distinction, but like you want to mirror and match them here. So most people will be neutral to excited. So you want to mirror and match a neutral to excitement. But if they're like, not excited at all, they're like, oh man, I freaking like this is the last thing I want to do right now. Then you want to lean out and kind of mirror that excitement and get permission and then let them step back in and engage. Or they're going to be like, you know what, man, like, I've heard some crazy stuff. I've had people say like, I just left a funeral. I thought I'd be okay with after this call, but it just hit me harder than I thought. And honestly, I'd probably just prefer to reschedule. Great, man. Let's reschedule you, like 100%. So that is rapport. Easy and as simple as that. So let's get back to the training here, and let's talk about the opposing agendas of you and the prospect. Okay, this is a small but important distinction. Basically, you and the prospect are on the call for different reasons, and the prospect's reason is to gather information. Your reason is to facilitate a transformation. All right, your reason is to get the prospect committed to their vision. Now, knowing this to be true, the more information that you disclose, the less leverage you're going to have. And I don't mean like leverage like making the prospect do something that they don't want to do. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. But it's like leadership. All right. So I put a few examples here. Like sometimes if I have a really disengaged prospect and like trust is just not there, I might opt for a 2-call close to where I take them through basically the entire process. I do a problem education transition to give value and provide insight, and then I reschedule to do the pitch. Okay, so I'll do that with somebody where trust isn't there. Now, like this was also when I was a sales rep. Nowadays, I mean, if somebody's coming in and working with me one-on-one personally, if trust is not there, I might call that out and be like, look, I just don't feel like I'm as connected as you as we were on the beginning of the call. Like, what's coming up for you, type of thing. I would probably call that out and really address it because I don't want to work with somebody who's not cool with me, right? So I'm going to actually address it probably to 2-call close. But when I was a rep, oftentimes, especially sometimes maybe you're dealing with somebody who's used to more of a multiple call process, the trust just isn't there. Maybe they're more in a corporate setting. I would actually 2-call close this way. The reason I would do it, opposed to maybe pitching all the way through and then scheduling a follow-up, is because that way I have more leverage. All right. Another example, I was talking about this on the coaching call, is payment plans. So let's say because what's going to happen is you take more calls, guys, is intuitively you really understand if this person's in the pocket or not. And, there's going to be situations where the best thing for you to do is they're really not in the pocket, but you're just going to make an offer anyway. Okay. Just get an offer out on the board, take a shot. All right. A lot of times you'll get there and you'll temp check through the committing phase and just through the feedback you're getting, you're going to tell they're not in the pocket. A way you can use information as leverage, all right, is giving them the pay in full price, but no payment plans, right? One way we do this and we use leverage, this is how we get their cash on hand and their credit. Okay. We don't give payment plans, the information, until we get the information that we want. So we can lead them to the best decision for them. Another way is too, there's been times where I pitch somebody to pay in full price and I know they're not going to close. And I do that purposely so I can set a follow-up so they can maybe go back and talk to their business partners. And then I'll see that, hey, I'm going to go talk back to our CEO and see if maybe there's something possibly we can do financially for you that can let you come in for less down and be able to cash flow quicker. And then on that next call, I'll to pay them. But what I did there is I opened a loop and I hooked them to where it makes sense for them to actually see what I got, quote unquote, on that next call, opposed to, hey, yeah, we're just not really thinking about it, or, whatever, and then they don't show up. Okay, so just some examples there, and we'll talk about all of this stuff later on in the program. Now, because of the opposing agendas, this is why we create an agreement at the beginning of the call about how the call is going to go, not grow. Basically, right, we have two different agendas. We need to come to an agreement about how this call is going to go, and we want to do that in a way that allows you to take leadership to where you're asking the questions. Because if you're not leading the call, right, if you're not in what some people call the alpha frame, you're not going to make the sale, right? That's very one-on-one, or 101, that's basic. Now, also, with the way we frame the agreement, and I do this in the scripting I gave you, but with the way we frame it, we want to frame it in moral authority, all right? Meaning it's framed to where the structure of the call is in the prospect's own best interests. Now, if you need a primer on moral authority, week 1, video 4, inner game of sales is where you're going to get it. Now, here's the advanced part. Most of this is just very one-on-one or 101. Advanced part is, if necessary, what you can do is stack permission with your frame of the call to get better compliance. Okay, so this is actually really good, and it works really well. This is part of the reason why you start the call is going to be how you end the call. Because let's say there's a part of the call where you go into, and when you get into this part of the call, you typically get a lot of resistance. Okay, what you can do is front load your frame the call so that you don't get that resistance at the end. The most common stack, I guess we can call it here, is when people say a no is fine, a yes is fine, a maybe is not fine. And they give a selfish and unselfish reason because of that, right? You can do that and experiment with that with corporate companies and more sophisticated business owners. It'll turn them away. With people with more of a feminine energy, it'll turn them away. I don't do it because I feel like I'm good enough not to, I don't need to do that, and it'll just lose me sales. But you can do that if you can test it. Another one is like maybe you have to go really deep and personal with somebody about, the emotions tied and their family, and how their weight and their health is affecting all other areas of their life, right? Because with lifestyle type of offers like that, weight loss, dating, and so on and so forth, we need to really go deep if we're going to get the sale. Okay, because it is a very emotional, leveraged based sale. So I would stack permission here that, like, look, this call, we're gonna go deep, and it's something. Are you willing to have an open and honest conversation about how this is not just affecting your health, but even your relationships and other areas of your life as well? So then that way the prospect knows that we're going there. All right, and I'll give you an example here in a second. So let's go into specific scripting. The first one here, and I want to preface this by saying that, you're going to talk about some stuff with the prospect. Like, you ask them, hey, you checked out the post, what stuck out to you? When possible, always utilize kind of what the prospect's saying. So like, let's say I said this and I'm like, what stuck out to you? And, he's like, man, I just really need to work on my sales process. It's absolute garbage. Okay. So when I'm talking about, the frame here, I might say we might dive deeper into that, garbage sales process, as you put it, and kind of make a joke out of it, and like how that's working and what's you're struggling with that, and etc. So the principle always stands. Like, this scripting here I'm giving you guys, it's good, okay? And you can say this part word for word. This is like the one part of the call you can, but it's not magic. Like, whenever possible, kind of flow with this and use what the prospect's saying. But for now, you can use this word for word if you want. All right. But basically, it's, you're going to ask them this question, and they're going to be like, yeah, I got notes. And they're going to kind of shuffle around, get a pen, a pad, and, be like, okay, I'm ready. Gotcha. Okay. So what I found to work best on these calls is first diving deeper into the specifics of your business and your sales process. Okay. So how that's working right now, and ultimately what you feel like are the specific challenges keeping you from moving forward. And once we get some clarity there, if we can help, I'm more than happy to walk you through how that would happen, and really wherever you want to go. And if not, we can figure out whatever else is the best for you. I mean, I can refer you out to somebody we know, maybe give you some homework, to work on in the meantime, whatever you need. Is that cool? And then you get an agreement. They'll be like, yeah, that's great. Okay, that sounds awesome. All right, now you can go right into the call from there. But if you want, you can stack permissions. So here's a way you can consider doing this. And I wouldn't do this just for the sake of doing it, but if you really feel like it's going to help you, it's a good tool, okay? And it does help in my experience. So you get an agreement here, and then you say something along the lines of, awesome, so what I found to be true after taking 2,500 sales calls is there's really no such thing as sales problems, okay? There's only personal problems that reflect within your sales. So because of that, if it's necessary, we might dive into some things about what's going on with you personally, if I feel like it's going to help you in your sales. So just before we even go there, I just want to make sure if that comes up and I feel like if it's going to help you, that you're okay with that. Is that cool? Awesome. Because the more you're open and honest about where you're at, the better this is going to go. So that being said, probably our best place to start here is tell me what your biggest challenge is in sales. Like right now with sales, what's not working? Okay. So what I did here is I'm using kind of credibility and experience to justify this claim here. There's no such thing as sales problems. There's personal problems that reflect within your sales, which sets me up. And, I used to say in a different offer, no such thing as business problems, personal problems that reflect within your business. Same thing though. And it's also true. And then so because of that, if it's necessary, we might dive into what's going on with you personally if I feel like it's going to help you with your sales, right? Moral authority. It's like I'm framing it in their own best interest here. So before we dive into that, just want to make sure you're okay with that before we go there. Is that cool? Awesome. And this is a cause and effect pattern. The more you're open and honest about where you're at, the better this is going to go. The better and more smoothly and more productive, the more value out of this call you're going to get, right? So this is not necessary, but I just like to throw it in there because it just comes off naturally for me. And then you transition into your first pain question. All right, this is how I start every call. Tell me what the biggest challenge is with your health right now. Like when it comes to health, diet, fitness, what's not working? Okay, way better than what motivated you to book the call. Okay. Now I want to give you a different option, and this option's a little bit better. I actually, in a lot of cases, will do this if I feel like the prospect is more on the sophisticated side. They've been on a lot of sales calls. So what I'll do, and it's really the same thing, is depending on how they respond here, like, well, what stuck out to you? So you checked out the post I wrote, yeah. And depending on how far they take that, I'm also going to tack on, gotcha. Okay, so starting off here, just like to set up our call, I'm curious, what really prompted you to reach out in the first place? And then they explain, okay? And then, so like here they might give you some of their problem, or they might, they could say anything. It actually doesn't matter what they say. What matters is that you're giving them the opportunity to kind of speak first before you frame the call, so that they feel like they're being listened to and they're not just being like jammed into this sales process. Okay, it's a very more natural way to start the call actually. And then so I'll say, awesome, okay, so based on what you said there, what's probably going to be the most appropriate is first diving deeper into the specifics of your business, same thing, okay? But the difference here is, based on what you said there, what's probably going to be the most appropriate, which is language you should recognize by now, is first diving into the specifics of, and then, current situation, desired situation, what's keeping you from moving forward to get into your goal, and if and how we can help. Right? Same thing. The bonus here is a lot of times you can use a lot of their own language in your frame the call, and that really helps it land and seems natural. Okay? So this is a little bit more advanced, but I like doing this because rather they kind of, like what you have to understand, guys, is I might ask them what stuck out to you about my Facebook post, and they might go into like a whole thing, right? And then so based on what you said there, what's probably going to be the most appropriate, and then I frame the call. All right, but you can also ask, this is basically what motivated you to reach out. It's not a bad question. It just doesn't really get you anywhere. So whatever they say, it doesn't matter. Based on what you said there, probably what's going to be most appropriate is, etc. Okay, only bonus here is just more natural, and it gives them a chance to talk first, which makes the agreement a little bit stronger, makes them feel heard. Okay, So let me know if you have questions on that. If you're in doubt, just go with number 1. And if you use number 2, make sure you still always make sure they have a pen and pad. That is huge. Okay? So that is it for the scripting, and that is it for the training. So let me know if you have questions, guys. Reach out, and then I will see you in the next training as we go into background and pain questions. Okay? It's going to be fun. We'll see you.